It's the 28th of August, and we're talking about one of my favorite topics, ETs and ET experiences. We're joined by some amazing people, and I'm really excited to talk about this topic tonight. I'm going to start by introducing myself, Alexis Constantinou. I'm a singer with an interest in metaphysics, and I set up Sacred Segments as an exploration of the metaphysical and the healing arts, and a way that we can connect through Zoom to share our experiences and hopefully raise each other up. If we go around the group, Bonnie, do you want to briefly introduce yourself? If you could unmute.
Hello, I'm Bonnie. I live in Texas, in Galveston, and I am a childhood experiencer. I'm also a near-death life experiencer, and my book, which most of you know, and I'm also an Irma experiencer. So that's my experience.
What was the last thing that you said, please, Bonnie?
Irma, URMAH, Irma. They are the cat beings.
Yeah. Okay. If you could, when you mute, if you could bring your microphone slightly closer to your, that would be great. Thank you. Great to have you with us, Bonnie. Bonnie's joined us many times on Sacred Segments, and I know a little bit of her story. She's an amazing person with multiple strings to her bow. Joanna, thank you for joining us. Great to see you. Joanna's our main guest today. Please introduce yourself. If you could please unmute.
Sorry, everybody. So I'm Joanna Summerscales, also Joanne, and I used to run something called the AMASH project, which stands for Anomalous Mind Management Abductee Contactee Helpline, which got hacked to Hades. So I had to quickly think of something else. So it's the ET Newsroom. So it's the same kind of thing. I've been interviewing experiencers, scientists, and researchers since about 2011. But people like Sixto Paz Wells across my friend's dining room table before then, and people like Peter Guy Manners on cymatics and the ET thing. Cymatics is used as sound and frequency in music and healing. So quite a lot, and I've written so far 3 books, 2 more in the works. One is called 44, and that is about one of the UK's most extraordinary lifelong experiences, and I'll talk a bit about that today, and a little bit about my own story, which I published out there. So it just gives you a quick snapshot of what I am, but I've also created Eclectia, which is an album which I'm hoping to get out there in the bigger world, which features musicians and people who've had experiences of one kind or another, mainly ET, of course.
Great. Shame I didn't know you there, and I could have given you one of my songs for your album.
Well, maybe there'll be volume 2.
Oh, great. Okay, well, that's something to look forward to for me. Thank you, Joanna. Andrew, good to meet you. And do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Andrew. I'm sorry, a lot of what you're talking about I don't understand. It's all acronyms. It's only that I've only had 2 very minor personal experiences as a kid. That's always sort of captivated my imagination about the whole ET thing, extraterrestrials, which I do believe because of so much evidence out there to suggest. I mean, I'm into things like Skinwalker Ranch, and I like to test things that aren't, I suppose, esoteric. For example, I can read tarot cards, but I do it from a scientific perspective. And I just see it's all the same thing. It all overlaps.
It is all the same thing.
It's all about energies, different energies, portals, all things like that. I truly believe from the experience I've had, even though they're being minor, they were enough to suggest there's extraterrestrial, there's life beyond this planet. That's about it, really.
It's absolutely valid. Really glad you're here. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for introducing yourself. Before we move on to Grethe, I'm just going to say that Grethe is a regular contributor to Sacred Segment. She hasn't been with us for a long time. She's been in the process of a big life change. But would you like to introduce yourself, Grethe?
Yes, I would. Hello, everyone. My name is Grethe. I am from Norway. I work as a energy healer and manifestation coach. And I am about to now move to Scotland for my husband's job, and we're very excited. We just sold our house, we're packing, and because there's no snow really in Scotland, as far as I know, I'm gonna prep my skis for storage. And it has to be done tonight, which is why I'm gonna do that while I am enjoying your great company. So thank you for being the most amazing company in my project. And as far as tonight's subject, I don't really have any experience as far as I know, but I'm intrigued and I am excited to be here. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us. There are many strings to the bow of metaphysics, and also a regular contributor is Carl, through some of what he does, which is channeling, but I know that there's many other strings to your bow as well. Please introduce yourself, Carl.
Hi, yes, Carl Preisler. I'm Irish, living now in Spain, retired, but also of mixed heritage, Irish-Danish, so speak some Danish. I grew up with a very, I suppose, engineering type background. My father was an engineer, studied engineering, worked in IT, but I always had an appreciation of I suppose, the esoteric, and that was something beyond what we see. And I always believed in reincarnation. It just seemed to me an unobvious thing. So later on in life, I started investigating, and I got led into training in Reiki. And then through that, spirit called me to be a trance medium. They literally tapped me on the shoulder almost physically, which took me by surprise. And I trained as a trance medium at the College of Psychic Studies in London. And I do that now both as a means for assisting soul rescue, for giving talks and demonstrations, for doing trance-based healing. And I'm also a qualified clinical hypnotherapist.
Wonderful.
And I like to play with special pendulums for healing as well.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. Thank you very much, Carl. So just the order of play, in the maybe 18 minutes that we have left, I'm going to very, very quickly introduce my experience to the topic of ETs, and then I'm going to allow Bonnie and Andrew to speak about their experiences before we go to our main guest, Joanna, to have her main segment. So my experience with ETs, when I was a child, I was with my aunt in Cyprus, and it was very dark. Like Andrew said, there was no light pollution. We were at a dam in the mountains, big body of water, where my aunt now lives, interestingly. And we tracked this light darting around the sky all over the place. And she pointed it out to me, and everybody was convinced that it was a satellite. We said, satellites don't move in a darting fashion. And later on, I was introduced to a society called the Ethereal Society, which is Britain's oldest UFO organization, which is a channeling organization and a teaching organization. So it was founded by Sir George King, who was one of the world's the only Western master of yoga, and he was an ET contactee, and he was told to prepare himself as he was going to become the voice of interplanetary parliament. Anyway, it's a huge body of work, and there are multiple channelings which Sir George King channeled And through this society, which I was a member of for many years, I learned psychic development, ET contact through healing energy, and multiple other weird and wonderful things. And I've since had probably at least 12 sightings, of which I have many on photo or video. You know, they're just dots of light in the sky. Sometimes they're a little bit more than that. But it's a topic that I've been very, very interested in and drawn to for many, many years. I'm no longer a member of the society for many reasons, which I won't go into, but I have had a lot of experiences and I've met a lot of experiencers. And I'm going to ask you now, Bonnie, to share your experience, because I know that you have had things happen since you were a child and that your father was a contactee as well. Do you want to share some of your experience?
Yes, I'd be happy to share, and thank you for asking me. And I haven't participated in the group lately for numerous reasons, but when I heard this was coming about, I always try to participate with the ET studies, and because it's fascinating to me. As a child, my father was an engineer, and he worked for Thiokol Chemical Company, which is in the United States. And even though they're chemical, back in the 50s and 60s, he created satellites and ammunition for Vietnam. And before Vietnam, he was creating satellites. And so my first incident was around 1959. I was about 6 years old. I don't know if I was 6, 7, 8, or 9, but it was in that area. My father had built the house that we lived in, and at the time, in the front yard had 110 pine trees. So the house was covered in pine trees and trees everywhere. And that is significant. We were kind of in the country at the time. And my father would come home from work, and they would with my
We
mother.
lost your sound, Bonnie. I don't know if you can hear us.
Can you
We
hear
lost your
me now?
sound.
Can you hear me now? Okay, you can hear me, Andrew.
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me at all.
Oh,
Can you hear me
I've
now?
got you. I'm sorry, my sound was down. My apologies.
Okay. Anyway, my father came home from work, and he would discuss with my mother what he had seen. And a lot of the information that I have was later given to me again by his best friend, because my mother and father had passed on. And I went to try to find the person who could help me remember what a 6-year-old child tried to remember. And so the man was an engineer, and he sat down with me about 8 or 9 years ago. He also had cancer, and I think he is gone. But so the beings that I had during that time were evil. They were not nice. I said my father was involved in war. And as a child, they entered in through the house, through my room. And they came in, they were threatening. They pointed their finger at me and told me, if you open your mouth or scream or give any kind of notice, you're dead. I mean, it was to a 6-year-old kid, these were huge beings. Okay. I don't know if they were 6 feet tall or 7 feet tall, but as a kid, I could tell you they were giants. And they were cloaked, they had black on. And they went down the hall towards my father's room, and I suppose they were giving him war information on how to manufacture weapons. That's my gut. I lived with that for many, many years, and when my mother died, my daughter and I sat on the couch with my sister, and I think my mother was still alive, and my daughter saw the same thing, and she and I drew the same pictures of exactly what we saw. And we saw very tall men, hooded. I was too frightened to look at their face, and my daughter said she looked right in their eyes. And they were pointing at her and threatening her about her brother. They said they would kill her brother if she opened her mouth. And anyway, so that was my first episode. I'm trying to go as fast as I can. My second episode was when I had a near-death experience, and those who came to meet me were my book. They were in Orion's Belt, and they came to meet me. And this is kind of the dude. That's definitely his eyes that met me. And interesting enough is when you ask them questions, they don't respond back because they want you to grow up enough that you get the right answers. You understand what I mean? So you can make all the answers that wrong answers that you want to, because you get to come back as many times as you can. But they give you the capacity to answer on your own. So they're not like teaching you, oh, this is the way we do it. As you grow up, they expect you to get these questions, the answers to the questions that you're asking. Okay. So they were very calm, very polite, much different than the first beings. And then the third beings that I met were kind of dynamic because they came into my life before my near-death experience in 2019. I'm sorry. I'm talking to my son who's yelling at me. I'm on. He threw me. My near-death experience was 2019. I started seeing them around 2015, and I ignored them because I'm a psych nurse by profession, and this is delusional, and I'm not supposed to be seeing this. And so I pushed them away, and I said, no, go away. I can't do this. And so in 2022, they came back again 2 or 3 years later after my near-death experience, and they showed up again, and I started communicating with them at that point in time. It is my feeling that I am a part of that clan. That's my gut. So anyway, that's my brief history, and I didn't mean to take up so much time and space, but that's it.
You're good. Thank you so much. I learned a lot from that. I also believe that we are, all from somewhere else. It's our history isn't exactly as we've been told, I believe. Andrew, if you would like to go next, Bonnie, if you could. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Bonnie. Go ahead, Andrew.
Okay, hello. My experiences are not so involved, pretty simple, to be honest, but enough to capture my imagination. When I was a child, I grew up with my grandparents, and they lived by a field by the port of Dover in the south of England. And therefore, I had a front row seat to what I would say was the galaxy. Every night, I could see millions of stars. And it was just one night, I was on a street corner, playing with some friends. I must have been about 10, 11. And we all happened to look up into the heaven, up into the sky, all at once. And we all witnessed what I could describe is a star. Just the archetypal dot of light. What it did, it ricocheted. So it seemed to be bouncing off like a pinball machine ball. And it bounced and it ricocheted right across the night skies. And it obviously was deliberate. The movement was deliberate. It was controlled, but it was at such a velocity. It wasn't it couldn't have been a satellite, because a satellite wouldn't move like that, and it wouldn't go at such a speed. And again, I wasn't alone, so we all witnessed it. And I still talk about it with a friend I have still today from my childhood, and we talk about it, that experience. it was quite dramatic because, as you can imagine, when you're looking up the stars, everything is static, nothing moves. So when this did move, this ball of light moved and such a speed, it was like one of the stars had decided to move. And I say, it was incredible. It was absolutely, took us all by surprise. The second time, again, I was outside playing tennis with a friend, similar time, and we were just wasn't really paying much attention to the sky. It was daytime. Eventually, my friend stopped and said, hang on, if that's the sun, what is that? And as I turned around, and it was like two suns in the sky. One was a lot lower than the other, and they were over fields that were adjacent to my grandmother's house. And it just freaked us out because we couldn't figure it out. And it moved towards us. And that sounds crazy, but by Doppler's effect, it got bigger. So the only way it could have got bigger, it was moving towards us. And I was thinking, my brain was trying to calculate. So if that's the sun, what the hell is that? And so I rushed indoors to tell my grandparents, but by the time I'd alerted them, it had gone. It's completely vanished. And that's my two experiences. I think too involved, but enough to capture the imagination, enough to start questioning things, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Andrew. I had a similar experience, but with Venus. So the Venus is known as the brightest star in the sky, right? So there was something that was just as bright in the sky, and I've actually got it on video, and I'm saying, if this is Venus, then what is this? Because it was as bright, and it was very, very bright. So as I said, one of many experiences. The other one that I would very briefly like to share before I hand over to Joanna is, I mentioned I was a member of the Etheria Society, which is an international organization, and they have this thing that they do called an annual pilgrimage, which they go to a holy mountain. There are 19 spiritually charged holy mountains in the world that was charged by Sir George King, who was the founder of this society. And he put a spiritual charge in with the cosmic masters that were sort of directing him. And there's a system of blessings that they use, which is a book, a channeled book, and they send out spiritual energy to the world. And every year during these pilgrimages, they visit this holy mountain. It's one of them is the very lowest mountain in the world. So it's just high enough to be qualified as a mountain. So you can walk up it easily. And it's on the Devon coast in a town called, it's near Ilfracombe, Combe Martin, that's the name of it. So what they do is they do holy mantra, and then this other team do these 12 blessings, and they send spiritual power to the world. And it's said that the charge in the mountain is supposed to potentize that spiritual energy by 3,000, and that helps the world. So it stops earthquakes, and it does all of these amazing things for the benefit of humanity. So I'm on this mountain, and it goes very, very, very quiet just before they're going to start the mantra, which is an ancient sound, which they do repeatedly. And this bird starts singing, and that happened again another year when I went. The bird started singing just after it went very quiet. And then all of a sudden, I see this very small, not very big, silver disc, and the sun is shining off it. And it's kind of going in and out of my vision. And I thought, this is wishful thinking. I'm with a group of people that believe in UFOs. It's totally my imagination. I'm imagining it. So what I'm seeing is this small silver disc, not very big, probably you could fit a small child in it. And it had black segmented windows, kind of like a bit like an iPhone, like a shiny iPhone screen. The windows, which were segmented, and next to me was this woman called Teresa, and she whispered to me, Alexis, can you see the ship? And I turned to her and I was like, yeah. And that's when I knew that what I was seeing was real. And we spoke about it after, when we finished the whole ceremony thing. And apparently lots of other people saw it, and it's what they classify as a psychic sighting, where it's partially manifested. So I think it was like a small scout ship, and not a main craft, but maybe sort of remote control scout ship. And I don't know what its purpose was, but the fact that the other person said that to me, that was one of my experiences. So we're just at the past mark now, which is where we hand over to Joanna. If you're there, I would like you to now do your segment. Are you there, Joanna?
Sorry, I am. Okay, so look, folks, in the chat, I've just put a document I put together. It's just got some links if you're interested, and they're just numbered. I am going to go 1, 2, 5, 6 for anybody that wants to look at that. So to start with, when I began creating a public platform, I guess, in 2011, particularly with experiences in mind, because even though it's not that long ago, there wasn't very much, and certainly not in the UK, as a sort of official platform, which is what I wanted it as. And it did garner quite a lot of interest, and Channel 4 ended up doing a documentary about the work in 2013, or a mockumentary, as I might call it. But anyway, be that as it may, a lot of people from actually just not just the UK, it was meant for the UK, but it got a lot of interest from all around. But anyway, so on May 13th, 2011, I set up just a meeting, and I invited anybody who wanted to come along and share their stories by way of an inauguration, if you like, sort of kind of setting the benchmark that from here on, you know, we'll be talking to people and putting it out on YouTube or wherever. So we did that, and at the first meeting, there were several people, including, some may know Simon Parkes. I don't know if anybody does know that name. He kind of gained some traction, publicity a little while back, and then some notoriety a little while back. I'm not going to go into that bit, but he was brave enough, I have to say that, give him that, to start the ball rolling with the first meeting. So because nobody wanted to do it. This is the thing, isn't it? Everybody's terrified what everybody else is going to think. And I was in at the head of a table, kind of a little area set aside from the group, so there could be some Q&As from us to them as well. And Dave Hodrian from BUFOG, which is the Birmingham UFO group, was there, and he helped with getting some of the people to come along, encouraging them, because I understand how scary this is. So Alexis, well done for doing this. And it's never easy for people to speak their truth. So it was quite interesting when Simon kicked the whole evening off, because he actually drew a mantis for us, which was his main contact. And he'd been having, I don't know, experiences since he was a baby, but didn't really know that until really 2010-ish, somewhere around that. I forget the exact dates, but if people want to see the inaugural AMASH meeting, you can do it. It's on my YouTube channel, and you can see that on the notes I've left there. And you can hear Simon speaking fully, and everybody else for that matter. It's not that long. So Simon spoke about that, and of course people weren't talking about the mantis too much either, or the mantids, what other people say. And he said he'd met sort of doctors, he'd met scientists of that ilk, and that, you know, he felt it was very positive. He felt that there was possibly some link with, you know, maybe intelligence services. I'm sure there are, but I won't go into that here. So anybody who wants to look at Simon Parkes's work, and I've done 1 or 2 interviews with him down the years, can do that. But you know, it was quite shocking for some people there to hear what he had to say about the mantids, and as I say, it was quite positive. And then there was this lovely brother and sister who really bravely came along, Tracy and David Martin. And I think Tracy was the elder by a couple of years. He was only 22 at university. And he had experiences like, going to bed, hearing something, and then suddenly finding himself outside. And he'd be like, I don't know, 80 years old. And this is another thing, the ET element, whether you love them, fear them, or whatever you think of them, they don't take into account, or maybe they do, the shock element for any age group. So, and it's not that they were trying to be shocking to him, but this obviously at some other level, I'm going to just put this out there and you can see what you think about it, that we have soul contracts perhaps that say before we come into this life, or maybe to continue a theme from many lives, we're going to be, working with ET, but we're going to do it through a human form and anchor something onto the earth here. And there's lots of things about that we can talk about. So this little 8-year-old boy was finding himself outside. He got back in, but as he did, he noticed something on his leg. And one of the things that he noticed was it looked like there'd been he said it was almost like somebody put paint on his leg. Anyway, the next day, he saw a little piece of metal sticking out of his leg, like only a small piece. And his dad saw it and pulled it out and was obviously some kind of implant, but maybe that didn't take properly or for whatever reason. Anyway, they weren't thinking like that, and neither did he, and he certainly didn't tell his dad because, it's scary, and he didn't. So that was discarded, and the next night he had that replaced, only except, again, there was a little piece of metal out of his leg. So they'd come back to redo, but I don't know whether they didn't do a good job or they were just trying to infuse people with some other thinking about what this may be. Either way, he was really scared at various times. He said, thank God, he said, I had my sister to talk to, and she would talk about, it's not all negative, but the challenges are really intense, very impacting on your life and to some degree mental health. But ultimately, what I find, and I'll tell you a few more of these people in a second and what their stories were, their minds are opened in a way that could not have been opened by reading a book. The material experience embedded in the soul seems to be the way humanity learns, and certainly I do. Anyway, so his sister also had, they were seeing shadow beings. It was mainly the Greys with these guys that were involved. But one day David said he was so scared, and he was a young man, maybe 20s. He was only 22 when he was at the meeting, but he said he was really scared this one night. And he said, I went into bed with my mum and dad. He said, they must have thought I was nuts. He said, but I just could not bear being there. He said, when I had my girlfriend and I went down to stay with her, he said, I felt safe and nothing seemed to happen. It was only when I was back, at the parental home that things began to happen. So ultimately things still, he's very young, of course, that much older now since that was 2011. But these things do have a way of stamping you for life with a different perspective, and one which is useful ultimately, whether you speak about it or not, the internal mechanisms which are at play as we work. And I'm also a regression therapist, so I'm coming from a little bit of that awareness as well as healer and that kind of thing. So then we had Brian. He was a very solid East Ender, and he had the most wonderful experiences in that he found them really positive. He was quite excited by them. And he said the difficult thing was still there were no people really to speak to. And that was really something. So from that small group, and there's a lot more that was said, but I'm going to leave it there for the moment because I'm going to go on to Mike Smith. And Mike Smith, also known as Bill Brooks, and his name, he allowed his name, Mike Smith, to be used at the end. He sadly died last October, but not before in 2012 we met and I recorded him, and then spent 3.5 years writing a book with him. Well, I did the writing because for him to relay his extraordinary lifelong experiences, and he was in his 60s when we first connected, was something beyond the beyond. His experiences also began in childhood. A lot do, not everybody's. Some people's start as adults, and we don't know why necessarily that is. But certainly he was a toddler when it was known that he'd been taken. But this was a guy, he was from the West Midlands area near Stourbridge, a place called Wordsley and 1 or 2 villages nearby. He was a person who grew up in extreme poverty and no education, just because he'd got a severely disabled, physically disabled brother, and he was often needed to do the school run with his little sister, now and again get some shopping and sometimes clean house. So there really wasn't much opportunity for him to have much education. That's how it was. He was born in 1950. So, I mean, it's not a million years ago, but it was how it was then. Anyway, so things began happening to Mike. I'm going to call him Mike. His name is Bill Brooks on the cover of the book. And when he was only about 10, he used to go to this field. And I went and did a couple of field trips with him in 2014 and 12, 14 and 17, and went to all the major places that he had major events and even not so major events. And it was really extraordinary. And one of them was this field where he saw in the distance a boat, a ship. And he said it looked like Donald Campbell's Bluebird. And what, for those who don't know what that is, back in the day, so this would be around 1960, 59, 60, there was a man called Donald Campbell in England who used to do the world speed record or land record for this boat. And then he did it on water, where he finally lost his life, sadly, up in the Lake District. Anyway, he said it was the most, it was the thing that he could most relate to. It turned out to be a Pleiadian ship. And then he saw these 4 beings walking toward him. Clearly a family, mum and 2 youngsters. I haven't heard of children being introduced to someone before. It's normally always adults. So that was fascinating. And one of the things they asked him, which is very interesting, was had he seen any reptilians? Well, uneducated little Mike didn't know what a reptilian was. He really seriously didn't. And but he knew the area like the back of his hand, and he knew he hadn't seen anything unusual. So he just said no. And then they also asked him if he would be prepared to do something to help the planet. This little 9 or 10-year-old boy. And he said, oh, yes, of course. He was a great lover of nature and animals and that kind of thing. Anyway, the upshot of that bit of experience was that he was taken on board the craft. And he thought, when I asked him, what did you think this was? He said, well, I don't know. He said, I'd just seen one of these movies and, Flash Gordon. And I thought it was something like that. Why would you think anything different when you're 9 or 10 years old? It's very, very sweet. But these guys took him on board and he was left with the kids for a little bit and they gave him a ball and they were moving the ball around, but not with their hands, but their minds. And they looked at him and said, you do it. And he said, no, I can't. And they said, yes, you can, just try. And he's convinced that they actually did the moving of the ball and it wasn't him, although he did try. And then the lady, apparently, after they'd spoken with him, having shown him the propulsion system, which I won't go into, looked at her partner or the dad and said, I think it's time to get him back. And they set him back down and said, and when he asked if they would see him again, they said, look to the clouds. And as far as he knows, he never actually did see them again. So that guy had some of the most incredible experiences. But what was amazing is that he didn't know anything about this until he was 44, which is also part of the title of the book. So in 1950, sorry, I'm getting my dates mixed up. In 1994, he had a download experience which showed him every single abduction and interaction he'd had with ET from the entire time. And the amazing thing is that as he'd grown into an adult, all those memories were blocked. whatever mind control, or for whatever reason they use such intense mind control, they did a good job with Mike, because he had no idea at all until 44, when in this download, and he was shown this entire slew of events, he thought, oh, it must be all over now. They're not going to do it anymore. He said, oh, how wrong I was. So that guy's experiences are intense, absolutely amazing. And the fact that he didn't know or had no idea, and not only that, he didn't believe in anything like this. He didn't believe in ETs, UFOs, ghosts, the paranormal. I mean, that guy was like black and white. He said, you wouldn't have liked me before, Joanne. But what happened to him when he had this download, which occurred like a bit like an NDE, and I use that advisedly because it was like a film playing out before him, except with all the emotional counterpart to it. And he said it so broke his head apart. He thought he was becoming, or had suddenly become, mentally ill. He had no one to speak to this about it. And when the morning came, because he'd had that experience of the download during the early hours, when the night before he was also a musician, singer, songwriter, actually perhaps not as much a songwriter, a little bit, coming back from Port Call, I think it was, having done a gig as a singer there over the Berwyn Mountain. And for those who don't know, also the Berwyn Mountain, in January 23rd, 1974, there was an alleged UFO crash there, except nobody's saying anything, but there was a huge military presence during that time, and we all wonder why. Anyway, so coming through the Berwyn Mountain, he actually lost 26 miles of time, about half an hour or so, depending on the speed you're going. And he saw a UFO, except he immediately forgot it. And when he arrived at his home 26 miles later, he then parked up and he saw this enormous, and I've been to this location too, he saw this enormous 300-foot object, conical shaped, which was sparkling off electricity, sparking off, I should say. And he stood within about 10 foot of it. And he'd been in the army, and he'd been a Sparky in the army. And he didn't touch it, but he just thought, wow, that's amazing. And there was, it was near Oswestry, where he lived at the time. And he said there was a fair. And I just simply thought, oh, it's some incredible laser show or hologram or something like that. I went, really? He went, yeah. And then he went in, sat down, poured himself a drink, and then this download began, but not before the TV, which he just turned on, began to feature ETs, little greys, which he thought was very strange. Anyway, so that's a bit about Mike, and there's a lot more to say about that. So I'll just give you a very brief vignette of my own story, which is called Vignettes of a Life, and it's my autobiography, which is written in a series of short stories, and it's taking in the paranormal, the weird, the miraculous, the strange, and of course the ET kind of thing. Now, I'm not I don't think I'm an experiencer, though nowadays people may say different, but I had one very weird experience that I want to share with you. And Alexis, you will tell me when I'm getting near to time, please. And this experience happened when I was editing some of the AMASH interviews. Now, I was staying over with an ex-colleague, and I was bunking down on their settee, very close to their kitchen. It was a small house near Hounslow. And so about 2 o'clock, I finally put my book down and turned on my right side to sleep. And I wasn't sleeping at the time, because just put the book down, I was still quite awake. And there was a camera looking out onto the cars in the street, and it had a little red dot in the corner that just indicated that it was functioning. So I could see that, and there were these vertical blinds, which it wasn't a blackness in the room, because there was a street light immediately outside. So it was dark but not black. And as I was thinking about, really, I need to close my eyes and not think about the light coming in, this blackness manifested in the center of the room. Now, the room couldn't have been more than 16 foot by 12, or maybe a little bit more. But there were also racks of equipment and big settees, so the floor space was very, very limited. So I guess this would have been about no more than 10 foot, possibly 8 foot away from me where I was sleeping. And this blackness that manifested was obviously some kind of portal. I say obviously, because you'll hear about that in a second. And as I watched with now my eyes wide open, I hadn't moved, hadn't sat up or anything, this man popped out. And I was astonished. Initially, apart from being astonished, I was kind of doing a check. Was it a fearful thing? Was he going to attack me? I didn't know if there was a human being or not. Now I believe it was a human being. Now I believe it was a military exercise or event. And this guy came out, and it looked like he was shrink wrapped in black. He had high set shoulders. He was quite petite. And you get these kind of guys in the special services, in the special forces, because Mike Smith was also training. He was quite a small person, and they don't always need the big guys. They need some of the smaller, adept, wiry guys to get in and out of spaces very quickly. And this is one of those guys. I'd say he was, I can't remember in the book, I said he was about 5, 6, 7 or 8, somewhere around that. I'm 5'3", quite a bit smaller, not a big man. And there were no features in his face. I could see ears, and I could see there was a nose. I could see no detail of any dress, any detail of any buttons or closing apparatus or anything like that. And he just walked toward me. And I mean, my eyes must have got huge. But I thought, oh, God, this probably isn't good. And I don't know why. There were two, my ex-colleague and a lodger sleeping upstairs. I don't know why I didn't scream out. I didn't feel fearful. I was shocked. And then he came right over me, and he must have been no more than 2 foot from my head. And I didn't move my head. And I just kept my eyes, with the eyelash, looking through the eyelashes, almost closed, but not. And as he hit my energy field, that's the only way I can express it. I felt this enormous electrical shock course through my body, and he just stayed over me. And people say, oh, he was scanning you, he was whatever. I don't know what he was doing. I didn't have any. There was no information coming to me from him. I didn't feel anything except this extreme concern for my well-being at the time. And did I need to get up and try and throw a punch? But and then he disengaged. Now, as he disengaged, it was like an elastic band snapping back. If you do that, it can really sting you, can't it? Well, it was like that. That's the experience I had that time when his energy field disengaged from mine. So he was, as far as I can tell, he was material, because our forces, our bodies interacted, our energy fields interacted. I watched him walk, and as he walked, he was fairly high set in the shoulders, a little bit. Some people have that, don't they? They're built like that. It's a bit like they've got a coat hanger up their, up their neck, up their collar. And then he walked straight. Now, the end of the couch where I was lying or sleeping on was right at the kitchen door. As I said, it was a small place. And he went into the kitchen, and the kitchen was tiny. And beyond the kitchen was a very small edit suite that my ex-colleague used for editing, for our edits. And beyond that was a very tiny... Sorry, Alex?
2 minutes left.
Thank you. So that was something extraordinary. And nobody in the house knew anything else. Nobody knew anything at all. And so that was astonishing. There was another event following on from that in the morning, but I won't go into that now. I just want to finish with Mike Oram. Mike Oram wrote a book called Does It Rain in Other Dimensions? And I can thoroughly recommend it. I've interviewed Mike on many occasions, and he is on the Eclectia album also. But I asked most people if they would do a soundbite, and this is under 2 minutes. And I just wonder if we could play Mike's soundbite. So I've got it on my desktop. So I'm not quite sure what the best way is to do this, Alex. What do you reckon? Any thoughts? Shall I just play it?
Yes, just play it.
Right, bear with me, everybody.
If you can't hear it, I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you. So I've just copied it over as an MP3. Let's see. Okay.
But something of incredible...
We can hear that.
My earliest experience was back in 1955 at the age of 4, when I told my mother that something of incredible importance was going to happen on this planet that would affect all units of consciousness, whether it be mineral, vegetable, animal or man. I told my mother that this would not happen in her lifetime. She did die some years ago now, but it would happen in mine. All these decades later, I now believe that what I was trying to say is that there is an energy coming into this solar system that would give people the opportunity to ascend to a higher frequency. After this, I started to see who I now call my space brother. His name is Telos, who visited me throughout my life. At one time, when I was walking along a country lane near where I lived some years ago, he appeared beside me. A portal opened up on the other side of the lane, and I was given the opportunity to go through this portal and go back home. I decided to stay as I wanted to continue making people aware of this change of frequency. He said if I stay, I will suffer intense pain until my passing. Since then, I have developed a degenerative neurological condition that leaves me in severe pain 24/7. Telos only comes to visit when it is absolutely necessary to give me a message or otherwise.
And it's a wrap.
Thank you, Joanna.
Hope
does
that wasn't
anybody
too
question-
fast for everybody. I'm sorry, I was trying to fit a lot in and didn't end up fitting, several things in as well.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Joanna?
Stunned you into silence, have I?
Where can people find out about your work? What's your website?
Oh, okay, it's the etnewsroom.com.
Okay, that's great. I wanted to say, before we hear from Grethe and also from Carl, just a few things. Thank you very much, Joanna, for sharing all of that information. There are so many people around the world, hundreds of thousands, in fact, that are coming forward as ET experiences. It's actually approaching 1 million right now. And a lot of them are being uncovered through hypnosis. And I know that there are a couple of hypnotherapists or hypno practitioners among us, Joanna and Carl. But all of these people are claiming to have contact, and it's being uncovered. And they're all experiencing the same or similar things. And let's not forget that we are being contacted or spoken to through a number of ways by the extraterrestrials, mainly through symbols. Whether it's crop circles, some of which are man-made, some are not. Of course, AI is a new area where that's coming to be. And I don't know if you've heard of Bashar, but Bashar is a collection of entities that speaks through a man that channels these extraterrestrial consciousness people. And he talks about the future in the next 15 to 20 years. We're going to wake up to the fact he speaks of that we are going to realize that the AI are just the extensions of our own consciousness. And there is the idea that the ETs are actually us in a future self. And of course, there's the negative and the positive ETs, but ultimately, negative and positive is very subjective, isn't it? Ultimately, there's this idea that we're all one, and there's nothing outside of that oneness. So just to wrap up, I just want to say they are speaking to us through channeling, through dreams, through imagination, through music and songs, art, film, creativity. They're talking to us through nature and through science, through inspirational ideas and imagination through visions. And then there's the actual physical meetings, which Joanna was talking about, as was Bonnie. And, you know, Andrew had those experiences as well. There are classified UFO files all over the world that are now being unclassified. And we're coming to the time where we're being drip fed information. We're also being given lots of misinformation. And we have to really, really use our discernment to know what's real and what isn't real. You know, but it's important that we do our research. Just to mention a few cases, and then I'll hand over to you, Grethe, to speak about your upcoming things that you're doing. So a few ET cases that are worth researching. There's a South African school about 20 years ago where lots of children saw a craft and they had experiences that were telepathic. There is, of course, the Rendlesham Forest incident, which is a very famous case. If you don't know about it, worth researching. Betty and Barney Hill, where she was later under hypnosis. She revealed star charts that were accurate, and she had no knowledge of these star charts at all. You know, she was a housewife. There are places like Pine Gap in Australia where ETs are seen. Area 51, of course, is another famous area. And finally, Bob Lazar and the reverse engineering, that's another whole thing that we need to look into. But let's just make sure that we're not being fed the misinformation. Of course, there are negative and positive beings like everywhere. You know, within our own species, we have negative and positive. But remember, whatever we focus on gets bigger. So let's focus on the good stuff. That's all I wanted to say.
Would it not be worth just having a kind of a general discussion about the topic as well as after hearing from the speakers? Because I'm curious as to why, you know, why more people don't have encounters. Why is it so few? And like Bonnie's experience was a mixture of some that had like bad intent and some that had positive intent. And we often hear, we hear mixed stories about both. And we hear for many, many years about, oh, things will become clear in the next 10 years, the next 20 years or whatever. And there's still nothing becoming clear. And whilst you're saying like documents are being released, they're not really being released into the public, like public space in a way that make them credible to the wider populace. So I'm just curious as to, you know, what people's thoughts are, how long we have to wait in this kind of holding pattern where things do get drip feeded. And if they are out there, why aren't they like making more overt communication approaches in a way that make it undeniable for the majority of the population?
I think to those that are ready, that is happening. And some people, their minds are so closed. What does anybody else think? Just jump in if you want to.
Well, you had Valiant Thor, just, you know, somebody coming in the 1950s who worked with the US, you know, if we're to believe all of that, for about 3 or 4 years, supposedly Venus, wherever. And, you know, there's Frank Strangers has written about that. So that's, you know, there's quite a lot going on. It seems to be that there are various sort of factions. And, you know, a lot of this is to do, I think, also with the technology. You know, clearly they're not using propulsion as we know it. And, you know, people I know who I've spoken to, nobody talks about the sort of propulsion that we're used to on this planet ever being part of, if they've seen the material one, you know, that kind of thing. So, this is nothing new, of course. We've had the option for free energy technology since Tesla. It's just been kept from us. But of course, it relates to the ET. So there's a big part, I think, there. And also, a lot of people are still very scared of anything very different. And, you don't really want to shock people so they can't function. There's one thing to kind of help to open people's minds up, like Mike Smith. I mean, he really couldn't function for a couple of years. He became an alcoholic and all kinds of things. And I put out what I did to be a kind of port in a storm, if you like, to give people an unjudgmental ear, whether I personally believed everything they said or not, but to help them get it off their chest. And I think this communication is an issue that we are too ready, and I'm not talking about current people here, of course, to dismiss or be skeptical. And skeptical has taken over a lot of the acceptance or the ability to give credence to any degree to people who speak of these incredible experiences, which are still amazingly still fringe. I say amazingly because there was a Gallup poll done by David Jacobs, John Mack, and it might be Bud Hopkins back, I can't remember where it was, the 80s or something. Anyway, but there was basically, it came out that even being super conservative, of course, and this relates to America, that maybe 1%, though privately they may say 10% of, let's say, just the Americans, that's 300 or 400 million people. That's a lot of people. That's a lot, 3 million people, being interacted with, and who knows how many more. And then you've got, the generational input as well. It's an amazing, amazing time that we're living in now, and things are coming through. And I do find it quite exciting, but I'm still quite sad to know that people suffer a lot of trauma still in telling their story.
You've made some really, really valid points, which I'd like to pick up on. However, I really want to give Grethe a chance to speak,
Of
and
course.
let's revisit it. So we'll come back to it. Thank you, Joanna. We'll come back to that in a moment. Grethe, please go ahead. Give us an update about what's going on for you.
Sure. First, I want to say thank you to everyone for the amazing stories and the information that you've shared. It's been absolutely fascinating to listen to, so thank you. All right, so I'm going to share a little update about what I'm up to. How much do I have? Like, how much time?
Oh, however much time you need, no longer than 10 minutes.
Okay, very good. So what's happened is I thought that I had found my dream house and settled forever in this little town south of Oslo in Norway. And it is my dream house, but I'm a nomad, and the universe is now showing me that I'm not settling down. So my husband got a job in Scotland, and I was kind of doubting whether I would want to live there because I had never been there. So I said to my husband, we need to go and visit to see. And we went there, and it was such an emotional experience and scary. And the reason for that is that last time we moved somewhere quite remote was in northern Norway, and I got really, really ill. So it's like I had body memories of that. It was the worst time of my life. And a God-forsaken island in northern Norway can kind of sound like windy Scotland. And so it was pretty scary. So we went there, and we had such a wonderful process together. Because what we did was we allowed all of the emotions to come through. We went and saw the house that we could live in. We went grocery shopping. We went and did the normal things. We went to dinner at restaurants to see what it felt like to go there. And to be honest, it didn't feel all that great. until the restaurant where we met this wonderful restaurant owner who was really, really nice. So that was like the first moment where I felt like I connected with someone, and I need to connect with people. And then we went for walks and we talked and we cried and we laughed and we said, well, we don't have to do this. We can make the decision. And then on the flight home, we'd almost decided not to do it. And then we wrote a pros and cons list. And it turned out the pros list was way, way longer than the cons list. And then we just decided we're just going to do this. And since then, we had already started to sell our house because we wanted to move closer to the city, because this house is beautiful, but this community doesn't vibe with me. So we needed to get out of here anyway. And the house never sold until last week, and we're moving in a week. So it was divine timing, and the new owners could take over anytime. So they're flexible. So whenever the movers come and move our stuff and the cleaners have been here, we will give them the keys. So everything just worked out in divine timing, and everything has been like, we found the house immediately. We had to give away our cat, and then my chosen brother wanted a new cat because his cat passed away. So now my cat is with family and is happy. And then I decided that this summer I am going to have a wonderful time. I'm going to go to festivals. I'm going to spend time with my friends. I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm not going to work. I'm just going to have a blast. And that's what I've been doing. And of course, new clients have come, I guess, because I'm chilling, but I'm not going to do any work until like the mid of September, because now we're going to move and we're actually going to drive to Scotland. We're going to bring our electric car, our Tesla, and keep it while we're there. And we'll see if maybe I'll just be a housewife most of the time, maybe do a little bit of work if I want to. But it's really been an amazing process. And I think the big difference that I've made now compared to when I moved to Northern Norway was, when I moved there, I dreaded the experience so much. I didn't want to go there. I hated everything about it. And I was moving from Florida to this windy, godforsaken place. And I just hated everything about it. So of course I manifested a horrible experience. And this time I went to this process of accepting and changing my perception of the situation. So now I'm super excited, and I think it's going to be wonderful. And I think I'm going to manifest a wonderful experience. So I'm actually really, really excited. So excited that I'm fixing my skis for storage, which is like, I've never done that before. That used to be my ex-husband's job. Now I have to do it myself, but I really enjoyed it. And maybe because I've been here with you, but yeah, I'm just really, really excited for this new adventure, and happy to give you guys an update to the people I know, and hello to the new people. It's very nice to meet you. And yeah, so from the middle of September, I will be accepting clients again. And
which part of Scotland will you be in?
I will be in Elgin.
Oh my God. I have got some really amazing friends in Lossiemouth just nearby.
I know, it's just a few minutes away.
That I can put you in touch with, and
that'd be wonderful.
They'll
Yes,
blow your
please.
mind. He will anyway. Okay, look, if you want to, I don't know, if you want me to text or put some information in an email or something. I can't believe you're going to Elgin. Wow. I did some healing work, energetic healing work for Elgin, actually, both we did. So there's a dark energy there. We cleared it a little while ago, but yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. If you put some contact details in the chat or something, or give it to Alexis afterwards, I'll put you in. They'll love them.
I'll put my email in the chat, and please do forward that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah. I'm very glad, because they're magical.
Yay!
They see UFOs all the time as well, and yeah.
I can't wait. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. Yeah, I think that's it for me, Alexis. Thank you for letting me share my update.
Thank you for sharing. If you don't know, then Grethe does some amazing work in the fields of clearing energy
Yeah.
and uses quite a few different modalities in that. Dr. Bruce Lipton is one of your sort of mentors, is that right?
Dr. Bruce Lipton was the man who introduced me to the whole world of energy healing because I'm a biologist and I've been into the law of attraction for more than 20 years, but I could never unite them. I mean, they both make sense, but they were kind of separate and like a division in my life. And then he, being a biologist, explains the law of attraction on a cellular level. And then he says how your beliefs shape your reality. And then he says his favorite belief change modality is Psych-K, psychological kinesiology. So I learned that, and then I learned emotion code, body code, belief code, and I'm also training in Norse shamanism. So I mix all of that together.
And I once asked Grethe if she was a Nordic alien, and she said no. I was like, oh, damn it, you're still beautiful.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Who am I to say? Maybe I forgot.
I'm pretty sure you might be there.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Grethe.
Thank you.
I also wanted to share with you that Bonnie is a psychic artist and has been drawing during our time together, and she sent me a picture of her work. Bonnie, do you want to just show us your work that you've been drawing during this time? Cool.
Can you pull that full screen?
Yeah, would you unmute and just speak to us for a moment or two and explain it?
That's us. All those circles are us.
Oh, they are us.
Mhm. Each one of us.
I'm trying to do full screen, but I'm having a hard time doing it. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Can you see it?
Yeah, we can see it.
They look very three-dimensional, the mound, the swirls.
Tried to get the paint high enough that it does look three-dimensional.
Yeah.
Yeah, try to. As it dries, it'll flatten, but I'll keep adding a little bit more and more.
Yeah.
So we'll grow that dimension.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to also say that Grethe worked for the Norwegian military, and her husband is a military pilot, and I wonder whether he's seen any UFOs. You know, maybe he's never spoken about it, but maybe he's seen something.
I've never asked him actually, so I don't know.
It might be worth having a conversation.
Yeah, I'll ask him.
Yeah, interesting topic. So I just want to pick up on something that Joanna talked about, Valiant Thor, who was somebody that claimed to be from the planet Venus and worked with the American government for a number of years, right? So there's an interesting connection with the Ethereal Society, which I was a member of, because they believe that Jesus was a Venusian, and they also believe that he visited the UK and had a meeting. Now, in the last sort of 100 years, he came down in a spaceship, and I know it's like really, really out there, on the top of a mountain, and had a physical meeting with Sir George King. So there's that Venusian connection, and of course I'm from the country. My parents are from the country Cyprus, which is called the island of Venus, and there's that Venusian connection because the goddess of Venus is said to be the goddess of love, right? And Cyprus is said to be the island of love. So again, symbology, and Venus represents love and love energy. So I think Valiant Thor was here to sort of teach us that the military ways were not the way to conduct the future of humanity. However, I don't think that the military complex were ready to listen, because there's a lot of money to be made from war. There's a lot of stuff that ties in with what Joanna was saying about, Nikola Tesla and giving us free energy. The guy that talks about the Disclosure Project, I don't know if you are aware of him. His name is Dr. Stephen Greer. The link between electricity and, cars and free energy and ETs is massive, but people don't make the connection. Just on a general level, people go, what has ETs got to do with me? I've got to go to work. I live in a house. I'm on Earth. It's got nothing to do with me. But when you really, really dive and delve into the subject, it's got everything to do with all of us, because, it's about energy, it's about medicine, it's about science, it's about all of the things that we use in our life on a daily basis. It's about consciousness. It's about our understanding and evolution as a species. It's about so many things. Carl, is there something that you want to pick up on in all of those things that we talked about?
No, not particularly. I just think it's a topic that, we can probably discuss, and I always bring my critical thinking to things. I can't help it. So I don't accept things just off the bat. And whilst I hear you talking about all the contributions, I'm not sure if you're implying that we wouldn't have made some of the scientific discoveries that we have done in the past, let's say 50, 60 years, and medical discoveries without the intervention of ET, or are you suggesting that they will be perhaps more fundamental to helping us make that evolutionary leap in design and,
Well, let's talk about
invention.
fiber optics, for example, that makes this communication possible. The communication that we're having now is only because of fiber optics. The fact that we have the internet and we've reached the place where we can have this is, there's the idea that fiber optics is a reversed engineered technology.
Oh, really?
iPhone, yes, iPhones, Velcro. There's a lot of stuff that
Kevlar as well. And
uh,
also Philip J. Corso, Lieutenant Colonel, or is he just Colonel? Philip Corso wrote about that, what he found in his book, The Day After Roswell. If anybody wants to check that out, you might find that interesting, Carl.
yeah, there's a lot
Just in
there.
that regard.
What Joanna was talking about with the military, I think that they have a lot of technologies that are maybe 50 or 100 or even 1,000 years ahead, that they keep for a very small elite number of people. Like regeneration and cellular technology that can revolutionize our lives. We don't have to die from cancer. Where information is being suppressed, I believe. I don't know about you. Andrew, I want to hear a little bit from you. What are your thoughts?
To be frank, I find a lot of what have been discussed tonight quite far-fetched.
Sure.
Even though I've had my own experiences, and I think this sort of illustrates why perhaps mankind are not ready to have a relationship with ET, because even though I've had my own very minor experiences, I'm struggling with what a lot's been said, and that, I think, as I say, as I'm repeating myself, that illustrates how, if I'm struggling, how is the chap that hasn't had any kind of experience going to deal with this?
Make a really valid point.
I try to be open-minded as much as possible. I believe in energies. I think we've got enough evidence around us to prove that. It's just seeing it. It's opening our eyes, and it's right at the end of our nose, so we can't see it. Most people, it's right there.
Yeah.
As I say. I believe that there's so many theories out there. People can cherry pick and people can make up a theory to suit their own agenda.
100%. And we
You
all
know,
have our own
and there's
worldview.
and people there's a lot of mental health issues out there.
100% correct.
You know, and it all gets mixed in together. And you say there's misinformation, and I don't think that sometimes that's deliberate. It's just what is important to you as an individual.
Well, there was a misinformation campaign that was very, very aggressive. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
someone that has researched the ET topic for at least 30 years. You know,
yeah. I
deeply.
mean, to talk about Greys, for example, and all these other, it sounds like from Atlantis. It does. I struggle with it because it's a step further to what my own experience is.
I think that's very common among the general
And
population.
not unless I have those experiences, I'm not going to believe. And it's like ghosts. It's like all of it. You
Yeah.
know, I talk about my experiences and I'm amused by the reaction I get. And it tends to be dismissive. And I'm fine with that. I'm totally fine with that. I think
A
there's
lot of the language that people use, you know,
yeah,
I listen very closely to language, and a lot of the
yes.
language that people use are, I know this sounds crazy, but, and I think it's one of the reasons why the people that have genuine ET experiences are really afraid to share it, because they're afraid of being perceived as crazy. I mean, you heard Bonnie, who is a psychiatric nurse,
I
talk
appreciate
about
that, but I think that person has to figure out what an ET
L-
experience
Let
is.
me let me say this. I was 66 years old before I started speaking about it. 66 when I had my experience. So
But
yeah, but I do understand what you're saying, and
no,
I
yeah,
worked in the mental health hospital for 21 years, and there is this fine line between, oh, are they delusional? Are they, do they need to be on medication? I think that often, and I hear people on Gaia TV, and I'm thinking the same thing, and I'm believing them, but at the same time, I'm like, oh wow, yeah, I do understand what you're saying.
there's a somebody that was meant to be joining us this evening that hasn't made it, called Tracy Ash. She's a psychic. She's a British famous psychic that lives in Egypt, and she runs spiritual retreats, and she's a profound ET experiencer. Profound. Um, I believe that everything happens for a reason, and there's a reason that she's not here talking about her experience. However, I really think that you've touched on something that's very true in the general consciousness of humanity, is that a lot of people are not ready. And the people that are in this group, generally speaking, historically, are people that have come from having profound metaphysical experiences where it's changed their life in a drastic way. It's not the layperson that has not had experiences out of the norm. It's people that have had profound awakening experiences that have forever changed them. But it's really important that we hear and recognize experiences like your own and viewpoints like your own. I think it's so valid and so important that we're very grounded in the way that we approach the ET topic. Joanna, what do you think?
Yeah, well, look, honestly, the Bill Brooks scenario is exactly as you speak to, Andrew. I mean, he honestly did not believe anything. He didn't. He had no awareness. I mean, that guy was locked out, locked off. I don't know what that was. I mean, he even said to me right at the end of one of our field trips, he said, I can never understand why I was so locked out, so asleep for so long. Because even when he had awareness, when he had that download, It was so shocking. It broke his head open. I mean, honest to God, if it had happened to me, it would have been shocking enough. But I have a much more plastic kind of ability to go with things and then go and dive deep in and to explore and research. He didn't. He was just no, no, and you know what? No, that's not real. And then they had to hit him somehow really hard, and he needed somebody like me to kind of hold him whilst he was going through it. Now, he'd been through the worst of it, but still, by the time 2012, when he started speaking to, he was 60s too, so I totally get that. But nobody had taken him seriously because, he was a musician. He wasn't an academic. He wasn't, he'd been in the army and he was dyslexic. He'd had no education. You think, what is there to qualify this man except his deep experiences? And that's why I spent nearly 3.5 years working with him, because sometimes he'd come onto the Skype or the phone or whatever we're doing drunk, because he actually couldn't handle it. And at one time I found a bit of evidence corroborating what he was telling me to do with the military, and he couldn't work for another 3 weeks. It so threw him through a hoop. He said, "Oh my God, it is real." Now, it's not that he didn't believe things were real. He just had never had any external corroborating evidence.
And let's have compassion. Let's have compassion
absolutely
for the people that aren't there yet.
Of course.
Because it's a scary subject, and I'm reading
it's hugely
what
scary.
Bonnie wrote about her 42-year-old son who is with her now, not a believer, who wants her to shut up, but at this point in her life she can no longer be quiet. I can understand it makes him uncomfortable. Bonnie, you get it, I get it. But as you say, when you've had a real experience, you cannot shut up, because it's so profound and life-changing that you have to speak out, even if people think you're crazy. This is a fascinating topic. I'm so grateful to all of you for being here and for sharing your experiences. I want to wrap this session up in 2 ways. I'm going to go around the group and ask you all for an intention. Just speak the words about what you intend for now and the future. And number 2, a gratitude, something that you are grateful for. It doesn't have to be this session or this time. It could be something in your life, a person, a thing, an animal, something you're grateful for. So I will start by saying my intention and then my gratitude, and we'll go around the group to close. So my intention is that we as a species awaken to the possibilities of our potential. That we as a species awaken to the possibilities of our potential. That's my intention. And my gratitude is that we have an open enough mind to discuss topics that are beyond the realm of possibility. I'm going to ask Bonnie your intention.
Okay, I'm going to start with my gratitude, if you don't mind. Of course, I'm very, very, very thankful for all of you. My intention, it's a couple of things. Number one, I've started a new job. So I've got to put my brain, all my thoughts towards that. And, it's in the medical field. And so, as Grethe knows, it's kind of difficult to shift from this gear to the medical. And so I've got to be, these walls around me, and I've got to be firm, and, everything's got to be solid and have a meaning. And another thing is I'm now a student, and I'm studying my master's degree in metaphysical sciences. And so my intention is I need to find my thesis. Okay, I need a thesis, and I need a good one. And not good for the world, but I need something that's true and meaningful for me and for you, and something, and that's my intention. I've got to find that, and that's it. So
I just like to, because I'm big on language, I'd just like to help you with that intention in the positive and the present tense. And so let's just change it slightly so that it works in your favor and say, I am now in the process of uncovering my thesis.
I am daily and nightly. My brain is working to find that thesis. And it's programs like this, that help me. What is it?
Before you share your gratitude, I just want to say that whatever you are doing, because I've known you over the last 12 months through the internet.
3 years, 3 or 4 years.
Well, time flies. Your reverse aging, you look incredible. And I know that through your near-death experience, you had a brain injury. You are doing amazingly. I'm seeing you healing. I'm seeing you prosper. And you are incredible. The journey that you're on is amazing. The fact that you're working,
I'm excited.
all the things you're doing, you are so inspirational. What's your gratitude?
You, all of you. I'm so thankful that I've met you 3 or 4 years ago, that we've grown this far. I'm so thankful for everything that's happening in my life. I mean, I'm not happy that I moved to Galveston, so I have to sit here and say, you know what? That's wrong. That's wrong thinking. I got to find the right thinking. I'm here. I'm here for a reason, and I'm going to find the reason why I'm here. And that's why I'm here. And, that's, what I mean.
You're amazing. Love you, Bonnie. So
Love
great
you too.
to join us. And give my love to your son as well. Joanna, your intention.
Oh, well, my intention is just to keep this kind of work in the public domain, and perhaps a little bit more so with some of the projects I've got, kind of down the line. So that's my intention, and to keep communications opening and to still be available to hear people and help people. And you know what, Bonnie, I think, sorry, is that how you say your name? Is it, okay, sorry. I was just
Bonnie. The Southern United States, Bonnie. Say it whatever way you need to say it. That's fine.
No, I want to say it however it represents you. That's the most important thing.
The way you say it is most important to me.
Oh, okay. Well, Bonnie, I just had a thought. I had a student who was doing a master's degree, and she was working with me to use material to gain, research material for her thesis. And she did it. It's mainly in Danish, so it's partially English, partially Danish. Otherwise, I would be happy to send it to you so you could see it. But she actually chose something to do with the experiencer field, the ET, and her lecturer professor allowed it, which was amazing. So with your incredible experience in mental health, I just wonder if there's any possibility of using that rich 21-year wealth of experience in the experiencer field, or reflecting that, and or if not, if that's too way out, whether that could be a springboard for where you're heading.
I don't know, but I'm going to give it some thought.
Well, if you want to have a chat about it, in that regard, I'll hoik out that thesis that I have somewhere and have a look at it for you.
Maybe Carl has an idea.
I'm sorry?
Carl, he may have an idea.
Oh, right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, great. It's just supporting, isn't it? It's just chucking things out there, and sometimes something will stick, and you'll maybe open a little doorway. And I'm very grateful to be able to speak to you guys. And I'm also, you mentioned animals earlier, Alexis, and I'm an animalaholic. I'm not able to have animals in my life just at the moment, but I am very grateful for the ones that I've had in, and they still make me laugh in their memories. So yeah, thank the universe for that, And I think that's me done. Is that okay?
You're on mute, Alexis.
Thank you so much for saying that. Joanna, I just want to say I'm so grateful to have met you. It's only been a short time since we've met each other. I think you're really brave to talk about and dedicate your life to the topic that we're talking about, because you're really putting yourself out there. I think you're beautiful, you're inspirational. Keep doing what you're doing. You're amazing. And I have met you for a reason. I know that. And there's stuff that we need to do together. And thank you for sharing everything that you've shared tonight. There's a lot of information there, and we'll delve into that as time progresses. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for the invite.
Andrew, your intention.
I think my intention right now is to be braver. Simple as that. Just to be 57, and I think I'm still growing up, and I need to be braver. And just listening to you guys and people's experience. I mean, Joanna was amazing. So was Bonnie. I could talk to these guys for hours on end, because even though I might sound closed-minded, I'm still fascinated, because there might be something in there that I need to hear. Something in that what they say will resonate. Maybe not all of it, but something will
That's
resonate.
wonderful, and I really appreciate the fact that you stayed for the whole session. I'm very impressed with you. I'm really glad to meet you, because I know that we've been talking online for a while, but to actually meet you is great, and hope to meet you in person at some point soon.
My gratitude is to Grethe. I love synchronicity. I think
Yes.
that is a sign, and I love when the most random things occur. And Grethe, I synchronize with right now in so many ways. Hearing her story, even though nothing about you, Grethe, I got you 100% what you're saying,
So
and that's quite amazing, because I don't know you. You're a complete random on her, and I,
so cool. That's so cool.
and it's really weird when you've spoken about that. Is what I'm going through right now.
That's
And,
what this sacred segments is all about.
and and it's just like, oh my God, you've crystallized what I'm thinking and feeling. I'm adopting a new approach. This thing about Scotland, the way you've dealt with it, that's what I'm trying to do, because it's better for me as a person. It's about like learning to
Inspirational.
forgive and learning all that kind of thing.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you so much. Appreciate your share. Thank you. Grethe.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew, for sharing that. My intention is to take such great care of myself that I can be there for others. And I believe that, so my intention now that I move is, I've tended to do my work first and then take care of myself. Now I'm going to turn that completely around. First, I'm going to take care of me, and then if there's time, I'll work. And I think that's the only sustainable way of being of service in the world.
It's beautiful.
Gratitude. I am grateful for the gift of understanding how I create my own reality and practicing it as best as I can, with the successes and not so successes, but all of it is part of my human experience. And I'm really grateful, because I look around me in the world and I see people who have no idea that they're creating their own reality, and they're just doing by default, and they're miserable. And here I am manifesting so many wonderful things. And I am grateful for all the work I've done on myself, because I see the quality of people I have in my life. They're amazing. Such beautiful people in my life. And they could not be there if I hadn't changed my point of attraction. So yeah, gratitude for all of that. Thank you, guys.
Cool. And you know what's also synchronous is Joanna's contact in Elgin,
Yeah.
or near Elgin, and I will
Yeah.
remember when we finish this to put you in touch with each other.
Perfect.
So that happens.
Thank
Synchronicity
you.
is a beautiful thing. I'm so grateful,
Yeah.
Greta. Thank you for dropping in. It's been a while. It's wonderful to see
Yeah.
your update. Aren't we
Likewise.
fortunate to be among such gods and goddesses? So
Yes, we are.
so blessed. Thank you,
Thank you.
Greta. Carl.
Thank you. Yes, it was great hearing everybody this evening. And I guess to add a little bit to some of the people who feel uncomfortable about sharing the topic, I mean, I can completely understand the feeling, because when you get used to the idea of allowing an extra, like an other intelligence take over your body and speak through you, it opens your mind to so many other things. And so you have to take it for real that there's different intelligence out there. I've had a number of them speak through me in different situations. So, but I just, I'm always hopeful to catch some visual signs. So my intention is to be more open to see what I'm maybe not seeing at the moment, because even just messages from spirit and signs from spirit, to be more open and more alert and attentive to what's being shown to me that I'm perhaps missing. And my gratitude is just the gratitude of curiosity and I think like a lot of us here, we're always so curious and always open to learning and experiencing new things. And that's something that we should be grateful for, that we have that desire, we have that energy, we have that willingness, that energetic makeup that like gives us that outward looking personality. So and then for Bonnie, because when she was thinking about her thesis, I mean, it did occur to me, I don't know, Bonnie, if you've heard of biogeometry. And sometimes you'll see it written as BG3 with the number 3. And it's kind of like similar to like Tesla, but it's about certain geometry and structures emitting energies that people are using to, it's actually scientifically proven to be able to help improve environments and workplaces, but people also use it in a way to like for healing and other stuff. But it might be just something to look into. And I see it being talked about a lot in Facebook and some of the groups I follow these days. So it's kind of a bigger topic that people are becoming more aware of. So maybe it's an opportunity for it to be part of a thesis as well.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much, Carl, for sharing. And very interesting. I'm going to look into biogeometry myself. Now, I want to ask you, there are two options. We could either close this session now, or we could use the remaining 10 minutes and ask you if you would be willing to give us a demonstration of channeling and bring in your guide, Katarang.
Yes, sure. I wasn't really prepared, but yes, I'm fine. Yes.
Okay, that would be wonderful. And maybe we could ask Katarang some questions. Let's be mindful of time. So I'll allow you a moment to prepare and bring in your guide.
Yeah, I'm just super hot at the moment because I guess it gets hotter in the room I'm in the longer I stay here. So
do you want to open a window or a fan?
It is open.
Okay.
Anyway, so I'll take my glasses off, and as long as you can see me. If I need to explain for anybody, it's I have this agreement with my spirit guide who he has my permission to work through me. So although I do describe it sometime as cooperative possession, it is like perfectly safe. and he's got the highest intentions for the good of all in his communication. So. Okay. Yes. Okay. I was wondering if you would ask me to speak today because the topic is so fascinating. And of course, there are many different energies in the universe, not just around your planet. So of course, they must be observing what is going on, making some determinations as to when it would be appropriate to reach out in more obvious ways. And their approach is different to us. We are working here in spirit. But I understand you wish to open the subject yourself and ask some questions. So we will do our best to share the understanding that we have here, that I have from my spiritual perspective, and my spiritual, shall we say, buddies also. We can share what we know for you. Yes.
Thank you, Katarang. It's good to have you with us again. Thank you for being here. So I have a question regarding extraterrestrials, and from your viewpoint, will there be a time in our current timeline where humanity will know of their existence collectively?
So, in all honesty, I think you are many thousands of years away before it will become, shall we say, common practice for there to be acknowledged interaction between the human populace and those star beings that are circumnavigating the universe and that are interacting with other planetary intelligences. I think there is much change still needed energetically within your physical world, energetically within the energy bodies of your human colleagues and compatriots. Because yes, as one of your participants alluded to, the mental pressure that this would bring about, there needs to be substantial preparation of the mental energies, the conscious thought processes, the reserves of you could say inner strength, sovereignty, and so on, that would make it possible for people not to feel unduly subdued or under threat, or like we could consider it this way. If I were a lion tamer and I want to come into the cage and I need to try and communicate to these wild animals my thoughts, my intentions. What we see is, because there is such a communication gap, a difference between their way of living and our way of living, the lion tamer has to resort to some very, you could say, assertive, manipulative, aggressive techniques for those animals to accept him into their environment and to understand his place within their world, because he is a superior being and has different powers, strengths, knowledges, and so on. And so almost it is like that for humankind. We do not wish for humankind to feel as if they are in a similar situation. And so there needs to be an elevation, an education, a preparation, energetically, intellectually, physically, psycho-emotionally, and all of these aspects that would enable then a open communication between those advanced beings who have so much more knowledge, so many more memories, and technological advancements to share without the human nation feeling as if they are under threat, as if they are being treated unfairly, as if they are being suppressed and so on. So I do not see it happening for many, 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 many lifetimes.
Thank
May
you.
I ask a question? Sorry, Alexis.
Yeah, I have one more question, and then I'm going to give Joanne the opportunity to ask a question. My question is this: are we being suppressed by dark extraterrestrial forces?
So you like to put very general questions out there, Mr. Alexis. Are we being suppressed? Who is we?
Humanity.
So you talk all of humanity being suppressed?
Yes.
No.
Okay, thank you.
We do not deny the existence of dark forces, but they are not suppressing all of humanity. Yes, they have their agendas. Yes, they try to subvert certain things that are to prevent the elevation of the human consciousness, the advancement of the human consciousness, or to pervert certain positive things. But they are acting in small pockets only.
I understand. Thank you. Joanna, please go ahead.
Hello, and I just wondered if from the spirit perspective, you had any working relationships or other relationships with the different ETs, and if you know what happens to the ETs when they pass on.
Okay. So I think we spoke something similar before on other calls. Personally, myself in my spiritual lifetimes, I have rarely encountered those that you would call extraterrestrials, because I tend to now dwell mostly within the spiritual planes, and in my incarnative periods, I was, you would say, human. But we do have mental communication through certain governing councils with those from other star worlds and star planets. And from a energetic essence, a spiritual essence, we all come from the same source. So whilst there is a modulation, shall we say, in the way in which those frequencies are coalesced and present themselves to the external senses, internally, spiritually, they are one. And to your question, what happens when they go on? They also return to spirit. Here from spirit, there are many dimensions that we can explore in incarnative periods, and those dimensions can be energetic ones and physical ones, and we would say maybe those physical ones will be what you would term extraterrestrial existence. So all of this is open to spirit, but myself, I have very little experience apart from the earth plane.
Thank you so much.
We have those who, as I say, govern in council, who communicate frequently with those of the planetary star observers, and they do share their knowledge with different planets, and they come and they share their wisdom through planetary councils and you could say ascended master councils, to ensure that all of humanity is being observed fairly, and that due care is being taken in preparation for any unveilment of their presence of certain technologies and so on.
Okay. Well, time for one last question. Does humanity, sorry, let me rephrase that question. Do those that govern humanity have contact with extraterrestrials?
We would say there are some that do, yes.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, Katarang. That's all we have time for. We appreciate you and we appreciate you coming to speak with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. Blessings, blessings to you all.
And to you. Thank you, everybody, for your contribution tonight to Sacred Segment.
Thank you.
Carl, I will say good night, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Bye, everyone, and have a good rest of the evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Bye.
Thanks,
Good night.
Alexis.
Bye, bye everyone.